Thank you everyone for joining the training, and of course, thank you to Kerry Gregg for sharing his video guru knowledge. He has agreed to do this training for us. We want to make it nice and easy, and hopefully this will be beneficial to everyone so we can begin integrating video into more of our efforts going forward. Is Kerry still there?
I am.
Okay. So without further ado, I will pass it along to Kerry to get things started.
Okay. Well, great. Welcome, everybody. Angela approached me a little while ago about doing a video to kind of get you guys familiarized with the equipment that you've been sent in your various offices, and thought we could take the time today to kind of go through that. You guys should have gotten a bunch of stuff in the mail the other day, and first off, we've got a little box here that says like SC1. It's like an extension cord. And then we've got another here that's SmartLav Plus, which is a microphone. And then we've got our big box here for the gimbal. And then another cardboard box like this from Manfrotto, which is a tripod. So what I thought we'd do is go through each of these things and kind of how we set up. Overall, what we're trying to do is provide a way for you guys to submit high quality video, and by that kind of make it all compatible across the offices, so that when we do these national initiatives, we can all kind of get footage that kind of looks the same and kind of behaves the same and is easy for us to use. So we're going to talk about a couple things. One is kind of I'll call it the stabilizing equipment, or the things we use to keep the camera still, which is like the tripod and the gimbal. We'll talk about the audio components, which are basically the external microphone that we're going to use with our recordings. And then we'll also talk about like the video settings themselves. Overall, people will in general tolerate lesser quality video, but they really can't tolerate bad quality audio. So if we have to choose one or the other, we of course want to make sure the audio is good, but of course we want to try and get both of them good. So without further ado, go ahead, and this is the tripod. It comes in a little cinch bag like this. I'm sure you guys have all used tripods before, or at least have seen them. There's not much to these guys, and they're kind of neat. They fit right down in there, and this particular one comes with a tripod, and then we've also got like a little bag that has a phone clamp in it, and that phone clamp is going to mount onto the end of the tripod right here, and we'll be able to hold a phone there while we do our shooting of our video. So what you basically do to set up the tripod is you're going to pull out the legs, each of these four right here, and then each of these locks on the leg kind of unclasp, so you can slide them out to whatever height you need. And I won't do that here on the table because it'll be too tall to see. And then you have this thing in the back that kind of looks weird. Well, it's actually, there's a rolling wheel right here. So if you loosen the wheel by pulling it away from the tripod head, you're then able to move it up and around. And then once you get it to where you want it to be, you're going to roll that wheel forward towards the handle like this, and that's going to tighten it up. So when we do that, that makes it tight. And there's a little lever here behind. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that or not. There's a lever right here, and you pull that back, right? That allows the release of this guy that's inside. This is actually like a little mounting nub. And so all of them will kind of come with a little black cap on them like this. And all you're going to do is take that black cap off, like so. And now you've got a universal mount for almost any video equipment. This is what they refer to as a 1/4 inch screw mount with a 20-inch thread. So that means 20 threads per inch. So if you're looking for compatible equipment, or you would plan on mounting something else on this later, you're looking for a 1/4 20 thread hole on the bottom of your equipment. You don't need to remember it. You can ask somebody. We'll be glad to help. So we're going to take this, and then we're going to take the phone clip that we just got out of the bag here, and we're going to put that on our tripod. So all I'm going to do is take this guy and screw it into the bottom of this guy right here. So easy peasy, screw that in, right? And then the way that this tripod is designed actually is that little lever that we just pulled controls that little sliver of metal in the top there. See how it goes in and out? So when we put this in the top and we clamp the lever shut, it's going to keep that nice and stable on the top. So I close the lever, and now it's nice and sturdy in there, right? It's not going to move. So then what you do is you take a phone, like this guy, and we're actually going to put it in the clamp itself up here, right? So we just pulled up the top of that, and everybody can see the beautiful picture of my family, and that's how we get that into the phone mount. So now that we've got that done, that's really stabilizing your video. So when you go to take video with this way, you're going to take it in landscape, because most of the time that's what people are consuming. Some platforms like Instagram or Periscope are actual vertical orientation, but almost everything else like YouTube and stuff that we produce for the company will be in landscape orientation, like I've got it set up right now. So that's kind of that. You can use the regular video app that comes with your phone. I know iOS, so it's just the regular camera app and just set it to video in there, and you should be off and running. On Android, I assume it's much the same. Same kind of concept. You'd go ahead and just open the video app. If it does give you a choice of resolutions or frame rates, you want to try and record in 1080p, that'd be the resolution, and then the frame rate you want is 30 frames per second. Apple does that by default. I'm pretty sure Android does as well. It's the frame rate that's most commonly used in TV and other kind of broadcast media platforms. So that's the easiest to use, and the way that we can all make our footage kind of compatible with each other. So after that, we'll move on into to how to actually use the audio pieces. So we've got this guy that's an extension cable, and we've got this guy that's the mic. I'm actually wearing the same mic right now. This is mine, and I've got it attached to the extension cable down here. I'm not going to disconnect that now because I'm doing something else with it right now. We also want to use this adapter for iOS devices. So this is actually a 3.5 millimeter to Lightning adapter, and if you don't have one, just let Angela know and she'd be willing to help you figure out how to get one. They're also available at kind of your local store and that kind of thing. So what this does is it's going to convert the input that you have for the lav mic, or this guy right here, short for lavalier, and it's going to allow you to plug that 3.5-inch jack into this end and then plug this end into your phone right here, right? And that way you'll capture the audio from the mic and not from the built-in camera. Built-in mics are, fine in a huge pinch, but really they don't give you very good quality at all, and pretty much avoid doing that if you can at all. We want to use the external mic for best quality. So that's kind of a little bit about setting up using the tripod. We'll go ahead and take this guy off of here, which is just simply releasing the handle, and then we're going to unscrew the bottom nub here. And I don't think you much have to preserve that little black cap that came off it at the beginning. It's there just to make sure the threads don't get damaged in transit, but you don't need it. We'll flip that closed, and then we'll go on to the gimbal. So gimbals are actually really cool. They're a stabilizer, but they're the kind of stabilizers that you use when you actually move around. So if we go into this guy, this is where I should have opened the package before we started. No, it's all right. We'll get it. What's great is on the one we're recording for later, I can just edit all this out. Okay, so there we are. So in this box, we have our gimbal. And the nice part about it is that this comes in a nice carrying case, pretty durable, padded. You don't have to worry about it getting damaged if it's in here. If we open it up, you're going to see that we've got the gimbal actually inside here, and what this is basically a stabilizer. So no matter which way I move the handle in 3 axes, it will actually keep up with that and keep the phone level and steady that whole time. So pretty neat from that standpoint. So if you're walking around, you can try and hold a camera still all that you want while you're walking around. It's still going to look shaky when you actually put it on screen. So it usually looks fine when it's you and you know what motion's going to happen in the video. But if you don't know what's coming next, it can be very disorienting for a viewer. So basically how a gimbal works is there's a big old battery pack down here in the handle, and then each one of these pivot points right here, here, and here have little motors in them. And so basically what happens is when you turn it on, it's going to rotate into a position that actually holds that steady and level no matter where I move it. And that's what the motors are for. one thing about a gimbal is that you actually have to balance it. So when you're putting a phone into a gimbal, it can be a little tricky. Don't give up. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and it does take a little bit of practice. We're just going to put this guy in the clamp. This clamp is going to be a lot more effort to get in there as opposed to the one that came with the tripod. There's the beautiful family again, and I'm counting on this thing having a little bit of charge in it from the factory, and it does. Maybe. Nope. Okay, well that gets to the next point. This gimbal in particular needs a good amount of time to charge. So likely if this one didn't work straight out of the box because it didn't have charge, you're gonna have to charge yours too. So when you charge these things for the first time, they take a while. Like it could be 8-10 hours plus for them to charge up the first time. The good news is once you charge them up the first time, unless you run it all the way down to 0, you're never gonna have that kind of length of charge again. It'll last 15 hours if you balance it properly. And I'm just going to show you guys how to balance these real quick. This is really the trickiest part of all this there is. There's a little knob right here in between the back motor and the side motor, and we're going to twist that knob to unlock it, and then we're going to slide this arm out until the point where it's balanced. So that's not balanced yet, right? It's a little bit off, so I'm going to push it back a little bit, right, until I get it just about balanced there. So that's pretty good. It's decent. Not perfect, but it's close. And then what you do once you do that is you tighten that screw back up, and now it's balanced. It should last a nice long time. When I turn it on, this thing will instantly kind of flip up and right itself, and then no matter how we move it, it's going to stay in the right spot. Something interesting about this gimbal in particular is you see on the bottom here, we've actually got the same 1/4 20-inch mount that we do on the tripod. So what you'll do is you'll take the little nub from the tripod up here, screw it in the bottom of this guy, and you can mount it on the tripod as well. So that's if you're going to do like a panning shot where you're going from left to right, and you actually need it to be steady as well as the same height. This takes all the guesswork out of that and keeps it at the same height, and then this will actually do a nice smooth pan. There's controls on the front here. So if you see here, you've got this little joystick here. This joystick lets you move left, right, up, down, all around. And then there's also the on-off buttons right there, marked with the M. That also lets you change modes, and there's all kinds of great stuff on YouTube you can go to view and watch to see how that works. And there's also a zoom switch here on the side, so if you're using the DJI app, which you can, that will control the zoom in and out on the camera without you having to actually touch the camera itself. Word to the wise, and something I found out just by accident, is if you leave the gimbal turned on and you lay it down anywhere, it will flop around like a dead fish. Because what it's trying to do is it's actually trying to right itself and to get stable again, and it doesn't know what to do with a situation where all the pressure's been taken off of the motors, and so they all just kind of go wacky all at once. So my advice is, turn it on right before you're getting ready to film, and then turn it off right after you finish, and that way you'll avoid that kind of interesting scenario. There's nothing wrong with it, it's normal, but you won't be chasing the dead fish across the table and onto the floor. Okay, that's really about that on those items. When you're hooking up audio, you'll see the lav mic is kind of about 6-9 inches from my mouth. That's about where you want to mount it on a subject. If you record 3 minutes of video at the beginning of your take, and then play that back, just see where your audio levels are, and if they're too loud, you'll hear it peaking out, or you'll get clipped signals at the top, like basically if someone's voice goes up and down, and the up part seems like it's clipped or just kind of stops at a certain point, that means you've got it too close to their mouth. So then in that case, what we're gonna do is actually move it away, and just by that much, it will really help bring down the levels. Same thing if it's too quiet, you're just gonna move it up and get it closer to the mouth, and that'll also have the opposite effect. So that's a little bit about how I use all this stuff. I guess at this point, what we want to do is, Angela, do you want to open it up to the floor, or did you have other things that you wanted to make sure we covered on this? And Angela, you may be on mute.
I was on mute. So if you have any tips or any things that you see from doing it more frequently that seems to be helpful as people start to get into it a little bit more?
Sure. I think one thing that's really important to remember is try not to put light in back of your subject and not in front. So in this conference room, we're lucky. We've got natural light coming in through this window over here, off screen. And then I've also got some lights at the front of the room. I do have some behind me, but you can still see my face, and it's still easy to pick out that I'm saying something. When you do try and film people, just try and make sure that you're not, their face isn't in shadow. The human eye does a really good job of picking up things that appear in shadow in real life, but if you're shooting on a camera, the camera's not able to pick up that much of a range of brightness and darkness, and so it has to make a decision, and oftentimes it gives more detail to the part that's better lit. So that's one thing. Also, rule of thirds. You'll see kind of in this webinar, right, I've been sitting off to the side, and we've got me kind of, if you divide the screen in vertical thirds, 1/3, let's see if I can do this in reverse, 1/3, and then also the, now I'm getting good, the horizontal thirds, right? I'm kind of at the intersection of two of those thirds up here in the corner, right? So that's very pleasing to the human eye, and it's a great way to set up your subject. If I was actually turned the other way, it'd look really awkward because now I'm squunched up against this part, and there's no action off in this direction. You can't see any of it. There's certain filming techniques where that's used as part of narrative, but it doesn't work real well for corporate applications and that kind of thing. So as best you can, if you've got one subject, try and face them, try and get them off to the side and either facing toward the open part of the frame or towards the camera. And that will generally yield a video that looks pleasing to the eye and doesn't make people constantly guess, what's happening over there? Why are they turned that way? So that's just one tip. Sometimes very fine, if you're doing a set shoot and you know that you're going to have somebody come in and film with you, a couple days in advance, try to avoid people wearing like really fine patterned shirts and sweaters. There's some things that I've recorded when I was wearing an Under Armour pullover that was so finely threaded that the camera just went nuts when it tried to capture it, and it actually looks like I'm wearing a zebra striped shirt even though I'm not. And that's just a function of optics and what the camera's able to capture. So in general, solid colors, things that differ from skin tones, get some contrast in there naturally, and that's a good way to make sure that that you're going to end up with a better quality video. So I know this has been a ton of information, and certainly able to answer any questions that you guys would like to ask. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't. But I'm hoping that this has been helpful for everybody in kind of showing what we do with these various items. It's not the end-all be-all, but certainly gives a start.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any questions for Carrie?
Hi, this is Maddie in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any kind of video editing licenses for the firm? Or what do you recommend we use, Carrie?
Well, I'll actually turn that question to Angela. Angela?
Yeah, some of the offices I know we have the suites available for Adobe, so some individuals do have those. I obviously have them as well, so we can talk about that on an individual basis of what you guys would like to do with video, and I think that's open discussion for sure.
In general, if you're going to use one of the editing programs and you're going to send the footage on to National or to an application where it's going to be combined with other footage, if you guys could use a format like QuickTime or an MOV format, that generally works pretty well with most editing programs. MP4s or the compressed video format is harder for editing programs to work through because it has to take in the entire file all at once, and with MOV type files it can actually work with pieces of the file instead of ingesting the whole thing. That's just one tip that I have. And there's free programs out there. I know a lot of people use iMovie. Other folks use, there's a program called DaVinci Resolve, which is also free. Those would be some options as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for recording like a more of a seminar, like getting a panel discussion? Any tips on that? Do you think it's okay to just leave it sort of stabilized with the entire panel, in view, or would you recommend that we actually take the time to move it according to the person speaking?
I think in general, unless you're talking about a multi-camera setup, it's probably best to just leave a wide shot. Honestly, moving around in between speakers is kind of hard because panels don't tend to behave and talk one at a time. So when people talk over each other, it's just too much to move it around. Regardless, if you do a multi-camera setup, I'd leave one shot wide to capture the entire scene, and then if you choose to take a camera to, say, isolate the one member of your firm that's speaking at a mixed panel, or if we're holding an exclusive UHY event that's got all UHY folks, we can choose to move the camera around a little bit more because we have more control of the situation. But in general, you want to keep at least one wide shot, and then if you're going to do a close shot that you move around, that's fine too, but I would definitely have both of those on tripods.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the other part about that too is if you're able to, if you're doing a panel situation and you actually have control over all the different aspects, then you'd want to try and get a feed from the audio board, a recording from the audio board that's being used for the presentation or the panel discussion. If it's a situation where we don't have that opportunity, what you can do is you can take one of these lav mics, like we just showed you, the one I'm wearing, and you can simply take off the extension cord, hook it up to your own iPhone in your pocket, and then just record as soon as you sit down. There's lots of techniques to hide the mic behind clothes. It can still pick up, even if I'm wearing it like on my undershirt, but not my outer shirt. So that would be an option if you wanted to mic a specific participant or isolate audio for each individual. That's the way you could do it. There's some other techniques using things like shotgun mics, but that's just too messy. You don't want to mess with it if you don't have to. Now, something like an interview with two people, you could get away with having a single lav mic held between the two participants as long as they're both about equidistant from the actual microphone itself. So that's another alternative if you're talking about a very small group, or if you're catching people like in a casual setting, like at a cocktail party or some other event or gathering. That'd be a way to do it too. Anybody else? All right, Angela?
I guess just a reminder, let me know if you don't have that adapter. It came with some phones. I think it just kind of depends. Carrie is showing it on the screen. Just let me know if you don't have that. We can try to get one of those ordered, or it might be easier just to do for local pickup. I know one of the more immediate needs is initiative that Heather's working on for the WISE conference. So just let me know. We can try to get one of those out quickly, or if you want to look for one locally, it's needed in order to have the microphone hooked up to your phone, I believe. Okay, if you want to go into more detail of the necessity around that.
And actually, that's a good point. So there's different types of cords that are used with microphone cables. The one that's used with that SmartLav product, the lavalier microphone, actually has 3 rings on it, so 3 black rings, if you can see right there. 3 black rings means that it's actually a TRRS type connection. And what that means basically is it's transmitting 4 different parts on this one cord. So actually, if you buy an audio extension cable, like a regular 3.5 millimeter audio extension cable, it will not work to extend the mic because it has to be the same 3-ring design on both ends of that. And then finally, what you're doing with that adapter that goes to the iPhone is it's taking that 3-ring design and it's porting it down into a lightning connector. So you want to keep track of this thing.
Yeah, so if everyone that did receive one of these kits can just test everything out, make sure it works with what you have in the next day or two, and let me know if you have any questions, and Karen and I will be happy to kind of figure anything out if you have any issues.
Yep.
Carrie, would you recommend plugging the gimbal into to charge it?
It comes with a USB cable, so if you use, a lot of the offices have like a USB plug at their desk. That's one thing you can use to charge it. You can also use an Apple iPod, charging adapter, an iPad adapter. Either one, it should be able to handle either.
Okay, so you can use an iPad or an iPod one, or the iPhone one that's the smaller one instead of the larger. You don't need the iPad one.
No, not at all. Obviously it'll take a little bit longer, but I think it's probably better when you're first charging it. Now, something I didn't mention is actually on the side here, the opposite side of where you plug in the charger is Oh, excuse me, it's on the back. So I don't know if you guys can see that. There's a little tab right here with the USB symbol on it, and you can actually plug a charging cable into there to power your phone. So if your phone's getting low on juice and you need some additional power, you can actually use the gimbal's battery to power your phone. So you don't have to carry a jump battery with you if you've got this guy with you.
Any other questions?
All right.
Well, thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate your time. I hope everybody got some value out of this. We'll have it recorded and available on the website, so, or on the point, so just let us know. That might take a little bit of time to get up and running, but for those that weren't able to join it from your teams or anyone else you think would get some value out of this, just let us know. We'll get that up as soon as we can. And thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Mhm.